Hi, everybody, and welcome to a new edition of Newsmakers. I'm Jerry Roberts. It is Friday, August 29th. We're on the cusp of the Labor Day weekend. So happy end of summer. Sad to everyone. I am joined by my colleagues on our all-star panel of top local journalists Ryan P. Cruz of the Santa Barbara Independent, Nick Welsh, the angry poodle his own self, and Josh Molina, man of many hats and host of the global sensation podcast, Santa Barbara Talks. Thanks, fellas, for being here. Hey, Nick, I want to start with you because I don't think this story's gotten enough attention. So, since Trump's first term, when the state of California put in place a law to restrict or minimize the amount of cooperation local law enforcement, state law enforcement could give to ICE, to immigration officials, there have been all kinds of reporting requirements by sheriffs and so on. And now, your story says that Bill Brown has apparently got two sets of figures, one on the books and one off the books. There's quite a discrepancy between what he's told the state and what he told the county. So, was he lying then or is he lying now?
Well, okay, here's what happened. The Attorney General for the great state of California sent Bill Brown a very gentle spanking letter saying, "Hey, dude, you're not reporting the numbers the way you're supposed to. Under state law, if you're transferring people from county jail who are undocumented immigrants to ICE, you have to report that to us." And what really makes us a little bit troubled by this is you're telling your board of supervisors in great detail that you're doing this, but you're not telling us that you're doing it. And if you were to look at the numbers Bill Brown sends to the Attorney General's office, which is charged with ensuring compliance with this law, you would think zero people have been transferred. And if you were to look at the numbers given to the supervisors, you would say, oh, 37 people in the first 5 years, and I think another 16 this year. Um, so,
So, what's his
so
explanation?
his explanation is really how many angels can dance on the head of a pin, and he should be made a honorary Jesuit. So he is saying that the term transfer is a term of art in law enforcement circles. And transfer means very specific things, which means we turn the inmates over with their hands cuffed. They are still wearing their jailhouse uniform, that they do not have any of their possessions. That is what transfer means. And so in the state forms that you fill out, the question is true or false, you have transferred inmates. And he answers all the time false, because they don't transfer. What they say they do is allow inmates to be rearrested.
And
So,
that's because of what how it works with the Sally Port.
yes,
Uh,
yeah, that's solid part. So basically, the way it works in the county jail, or has been working in the county jail, is that when Nick Welsh's term is up, and I have done enough things that were just, enough serious offenses that qualify under state law, Bill Brown will notify them this is when Nick Welsh should be released. And if ICE cares enough, they can be there at that time and come get me. The sheriff will not and cannot, under state law, hold them any longer uh, so that ICE can get there and give ICE to a window of
so
opportunity
is
to
he
show up.
being just too clever by half here and trying to have it both ways?
Okay, I have not. It's just it does have a bit of a fu feel to it.
Yeah, yeah.
It's just sort of like, okay, I'm going to answer the question you asked in the most legalistically restrictive manner I can, knowing that it doesn't really go to the point. Now, if you wanted to be broader about it, I mean, the concern raised, why does anybody really care? I mean, he's reporting to local officials what the numbers are, just not to the state. So who cares? But if the state agency responsible for seeing that this law is being complied with doesn't have good numbers, they don't know how much compliance there is. And, so, and is Bill Brown the only sheriff in,
Yeah, is that yeah, is he the only sheriff
and
district?
if you look at the Attorney General portal on this, there's a lot of other sheriffs who are saying false, 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 false. So one wonders what kind of representation and reporting is being done.
Yeah, and the other, I mean, Brown's the extent or lack of same of his cooperation with ICE has been a big deal in a lot of several rather uh, emotional meetings, public meetings that have been held lately. Does this have any effect on that, or it just makes people mistrust him more?
I don't know that it's going to have it's not going to change the way things are done. I think Bill Brown said, okay, you want me to report transfers this way? We'll do it. So he said, we'll do it. The Attorney General said, I'm giving you 30 days to amend the previous 5-year reports you've submitted. It'll take him 5 minutes to do it. It's not a big deal. And Brown is saying, we're going to comply. I think for people who are inclined to distrust Bill Brown, it will only heighten that. I
And
think for people,
as usual, when it gets hot, Bill's nowhere to be found. He's off in Tonga or someplace.
well, he was on vacation
Yeah,
on this one,
and he
and
throws Underwood under the undersheriff under the bus again.
well, I will say this about Craig Bonner, the undersheriff. He was very forthcoming. He gave me all the time I wanted to talk about it, and but here's the really interesting information that he gave me. Uh, that sort of buries the lead of this story. The federal government and ICE now, what they are doing is they are filing warrants for the arrest of these people in county jail. And if you have a judicially issued arrest warrant, by law, the county has to hold these people for up to 5 days past the due date of their sentence so that ICE can come pick them up. So what we have seen, like if you look at the numbers, ICE winds up picking up about 15% of all of the people who they are qualified to pick up over the years. That number has now shifted to 100%. And so we have seen in the first 8 months of this year, 16 people, maybe it's 19, I can't remember, being transferred, whatever you want to say that word means. And that's more than any of the previous 5 years.
And it's going to pick up more because they're
So
going to
it's
get
going to pick up a lot more.
$18 zillion in October in new federal funding. And Ryan, you touched on that in your piece, sort of reporting on the trend line of ICE's activity and what's been going on in neighborhoods and what people have been seeing since the start of the year. Talk about that a little bit.
Yeah, we've definitely seen, evolution over the summer. Definitely in June, there was a lot more of those, you call them jump out crews, people in unmarked vehicles wearing a variety of these vests. They had FBI, HSI, ERO, ICE. Sometimes it just says police. That was happening a lot in June and then through early July. And then we saw, of course, in July, the first big scale raid we saw at Carpinteria and Camarillo, and about 300 folks were taken there, and 10 here in Carpinteria. But in August, we saw a little bit of people are hesitant to call it a slowdown, because the arrests were still occurring, but it was in different locations at courthouses and jails, immigration hearings, and it would happen early in the morning or late at night when these, community watchdogs weren't able to be in the streets. So we saw ICE kind of changing their tactics a little bit. But it's still going on. Just today, this morning, we saw on the east side 2 people get taken. Windows were shattered of a car, and I think that's really the worry with people working on the street. I don't think the big worry is the jail pickups. It's like a handful each year when you're talking about how many arrests it is, and those are the people that ICE and the Trump administration have professed to go after, the people that are proven to be criminals and have committed a crime. And I don't think general public has a huge problem with that. I think they have a problem with these arrests in the streets that are, they don't show the warrant, or we don't know as a public. When we reach out to ICE, they don't give us any sort of information of who got arrested today in Santa Barbara, what they were wanted for. If we were to report this on the east side and come to find out they were serving a warrant for some people who did a violent crime, I think the public had a right to know that, but we're not seeing that. So it's a lot of a calm before the storm feeling, with October looming over with 170 billion total, 30 billion specifically for removal operations. Of course, they're trying to hire tens of thousands of new officers, which, lowering the requirements for all that. And kind of the videos that we've been seeing put out about what they're getting away with, who's signing up for this is the worry.
How much of the change that's been noticed in both the scale and the tactics are a result of this federal court ruling, that basically accused ICE of, or said they were doing racial profiling?
Yeah, well, it's hard to really quantify how much, but there has been fewer, I'll say, anecdotal incidents of these indiscriminate, arrests of just stopping by. In Goleta, we saw people getting picked up outside of a 7-Eleven or a trash recycling area, and that was one of those where there was no reason other than they were speaking Spanish and they assumed they were undocumented. We're seeing a slowdown in that, at least. And it's hard to say, people working on the ground, they're really hesitant of saying, it's because of the TRO, because over and over again, we've seen the Trump administration kind of not follow the laws, kind of be scofflaw about how they operate. And it is kind of a slowdown that maybe their ICE is figuring out and DHS is figuring out how to kind of go about this going forward and meet that 3,000 quota that they put on themselves. So we've seen operationally, yes, fewer of those indiscriminate racially profiling arrests, which is a great thing in the community. But, we're still seeing people get picked up on the streets, and a lot of questions as to why. And then there's schools also, which everybody's really worried about whether they're going to cross that, boundary of
Well,
entering a
yeah,
school.
and you make a very important point there. I mean, the key thing here is the rule of law, and that's what they have totally abandoned. I mean, and you can
Yeah,
say that
and
about
with the
the
masks,
Trump
so
administration writ large. But the thing that gets me is, they're grabbing people who go for their hearings. These are people who have entered the system. We're trying to work their way through the system. It's a complicated thing. It takes a long time. There's a lot of procedures. They have hearings they have to check in. So they're zooming in and arresting them at their hearings. Say,
yeah,
oh, we
and
changed our mind.
and
You're not.
you always hear, go about it the right way. Why don't they go about it the
Yeah,
right
yeah.
way? And these are folks going about it the right way, going to their hearings. It doesn't happen overnight. You have to go through a process and interviews and all these applications, and they're going through that, and they get picked up at those hearings. And not only do they get picked up, but maybe the person that drove them, if they're also undocumented, is getting picked up as well. That's not what they're going after. And that's really why people want to make these federal agents show their faces. And we saw the county, show support for these 2 bills that would force federal agents to take off the masks unless it's a health emergency or a SWAT undercover or something like that. And also wear identification. Those are going to be hard to enforce. That's the big question. If a state says something's illegal, but federal government just does it anyway, who enforces that? That's going to be a huge question. But symbolically, I think it's a good gesture of saying we don't want to. One thing that I'll point out is that under Sheriff Bonner, he was there and he said that sheriff's office deputies, they're always showing their faces.
No, and
They
it's
always
such a
have that.
crock. Oh, we're getting doxxed. Our pictures of
That I really want to push back
great.
against that. You know, we
Every
had to put that quote in, and I really will push back against that. That's one of those lines, you know, he met with somebody from DHS and ICE, and they're saying they're being followed. And I have met with these people that are watchdogs, community on the street doing this rapid response, and they are trained not to ever, ever follow these officers, not to ever, ever interfere, because that will put everything they're trying to do in
Well,
up to a
I
risk.
mean, here's the thing. Law enforcement, professional law enforcement in the US, and this is true of the military as well, members are also citizens and they are
Mm-hmm.
there to protect citizens. These guys are changing that. They're not there. They're there as an occupying force, and
And
we are the occupiers, unfortunately.
I'd argue, you know, he made the statement on one hand how the local law enforcement always show their faces and identification, and that's because they're operating above board. They don't have anything to worry about being followed because they're not jumping out with masks on, just taking people. So it's really, you know, disingenuous to say they're being followed. There are people in our community. It's almost even worse if the ICE officers or somebody who lives next door to us goes to the Little League field on Saturday, and then Monday through Thursday they're just picking up people off the street. That would be
Yeah,
even
people
worse.
who like to wear a mask, like the Ku Klux Klan, generally are the
Exactly.
guys. All right, Josh, before my head explodes about Trump again, let me explode about something else. You know, I've only lived here since 2002, so I've been watching closely the rapid advancement of the Metrolink train coming to the commuter train coming to Santa Barbara back and forth to Ventura. And I was pretty excited because it was going to be here, according to your reporting, in October. And I was going to be right there, you know, with the brass band playing and when they cut the ribbon, but apparently not. Yet another delay. What's going on?
Train in the lane.
Oh, I don't even know how to respond to that leading question. So you'll still be around in January, Jerry, so you can still do everything you wanted to
Well,
then.
maybe, you know,
Assuming assuming it's not delayed again. But yeah, so this is complicated because there's multiple local, state, and sort of these federal organizations involved, right? So yes, the city, well, I should say regionally, the plan was to have widening of Highway 101, which they're doing by adding that HOV lane, and it's almost done. And also, as part of that, figure out a way to add commuter rail from Ventura County to Goleta, Santa Barbara, particularly at a time that's early. So it syncs with people's work schedules. And so they started a little bit of that before COVID, and ridership wasn't great, and then it ended. So now they're partnering with Metrolink, which has a long proven service, in LA and Southern California. So what's happening now is that they are trying to finalize agreements. This is in the hands of bureaucracy and paperwork. And essentially, what it would be that Metrolink would subcontract with LoSan, which is this regional organization, and partner with Amtrak. And they also have to get approval from Union Pacific, which owns the rails, to sync a train from Ventura County to Santa Barbara and Goleta, which theoretically will get people off Highway 101 if it's convenient and easy and quicker, and they can go to work and then come back. This is complicated because it isn't one or two agencies. You've got Union Pacific, which is currently about to merge with some other freight train operator, the other biggest one in the country. So that's going on. You've got LoSan, which is this regional organization. You've got the Santa Barbara County Association of Governments. You've got the Ventura equivalent of this organization. And you've got all of these groups and lawyers trying to make this happen. So it's one of those things. They've made a presentation, an update to the SBCAG board of directors, and they said, we're not quite there yet. We hope to get there by January. Theoretically, it would be a great thing if it could actually
Let's
work.
cut this little portion of tape where Josh is going to happen in January. We'll play that back. Okay, Lausanne. Where's Kelly Bruger when you need her? That's the world's worst acronym, maybe. But Josh, for $100. Tell me what low sand means.
Los Angeles, San Diego, and some other city,
Ah,
regional corridor. Yes.
all right, you owe me.
San Luis Obispo. San Luis Obispo. There you go.
You owe
So
me
yes.
$100. No, you owe
So
me.
it's those three agencies, and they manage the regional corridor. So yeah, but it's a great thing if we look at it positive. I mean, look how long widening Highway 101 is. They didn't even have the fun. I mean,
Yeah, and that's
they
gonna be
get
done what, Friday, right? I don't know. That's yeah.
they sort of keep getting funding every year, and it's an effort. But I like it because I mean I like the idea of covering this issue because everybody has an opinion on regional transportation. There are the conservatives out there who hate alternative transportation. I'm not mentioning you, Jerry, at all, who who definitely think this is like a waste of money, waste of effort. People are never going to take this train. They're always going to drive, and this is a waste of resources that could be used on other programs. And then there are other people who say if you make it easy, quick, convenient, you can lift so many people off Highway 101. So that's what this is all about. But it's super important. I mean, if they could make it work, yeah. I mean, we all know Santa Barbara is unaffordable to live in. So yeah, if you can live somewhere else and be able to commute in and it's easy and convenient, that improves people's quality of life. And I don't
Right.
mean conservative.
Add your publisher to the list of those dumping on public transportation. I don't know if you've read the Best of Bill column this week, but he's all over. He's on the anti-low sand train too. Hey,
Yes, by conservative, Jerry, I don't mean you politically. I mean just somebody who, is appropriately skeptical of government. Yes.
thanks for pointing that out. I had Baerbock, my friend Mark Baerbock, on arguing yesterday about the Prop 50 thing, which he thinks is terrible, the redistricting. So I was taking the progressive point of view on that one. Hey, Nick, you had a kind of another big deal story. One of, I don't know, is it the largest or one of the largest providers of services for homeless people, Path, is closing, shutting down.
So PATH is when you think of sort of the old school model of a homeless shelter. PATH, which is it. It's located over 815 Cassis Street, over by the railroad tracks, and there's always a ton of people from the shelter kind of out on the streets. And it opened, I want to say, in 1998. And it used to be a furniture warehouse, and everybody realized, we've been playing whack-a-mole with the homeless. We got to have a shelter. We got to have, and it was really an impressive and opportunistic gathering of different tribes, government officials, business people, do-gooders, get-shit-doners, and they all kind of came together and made this thing happen. For a long time, it was known very optimistically as Casa Esperanza, the House of Hope. And for whatever it was always kind of a mess. And the neighbors were always upset, and funding was always a problem. So about 10 years ago, this outfit called PATH, which is People Assisting the Homeless, which is a statewide outfit with about 25 operations throughout the state, said we're going to buy it. And we know how to do this. And they kind of had a different, it's like, we're not warehousing homeless people so they can just be homeless. We're going to get them on the conveyor belt towards turning their lives around so that they can get housing. And so
by what? By having like services, wraparound services, and
all that, all that. And again, it's one thing to put on a piece of paper. It's really another thing to do in reality. And they, for all their humongous resource advantage, hit the brick wall really fast. They had an almost impossible time hiring an executive director locally. And if you're not here and you're trying to run it from LA, that's strike 1, 2, and 3. And then you have, the chronic inevitable nature of you just have a bunch of people who are kind of messy hanging around out on the street and people don't like it. The reality is that part of town was a magnet for sort of people down on their luck before there was a homeless shelter, but it definitely became more of a magnet. And they had 200 beds to start with. They dropped it down to 100. Most of those beds now have been sold in advance. So let's say I wanted to go. Most nights they would say, "Sorry, all the beds have been pre-reserved," or and so there's been very limited opportunity for people off the street just to sort of walk on in the way you can do with the rescue mission.
But then they lost the city contract too, or
They lost a $200,000 city contract.
and was that the final?
I kind of think it was the final straw. Nobody has said that, but the city has been getting increasingly impatient with them. What are you doing? You're not living up to our expectations. We're putting you on remedial improvement program, and
So what's going to happen? I mean, they're going to shut their doors, and what's the
as of
effect
December
on the
30,
community?
so on December 31st, they're out of here. Now, in the meantime, the city of Santa Barbara is negotiating to buy it. That doesn't give them much time to get it. They've got about $3 million in debt on the building right now, so I can't imagine it's going to
So
be cheap.
the city wants to buy the property, or
Yeah,
the,
they want to buy the property, and they want to turn it into
a better homeless.
a better homeless home, and they actually have down the road plans to buy a property next door to create kind of a campus, so you can have sort of a range of services and a range. So for people who are like barely able to get into housing, and the people who are really much more functional, and so they'll have a range. That's the hope and the dream.
And still have shelter beds?
Yeah. The real question though is who's going to run it? And there's like 3 organizations in town who theoretically could run it. I kind of think Sylvia Bernard and Good Samaritan is way out front in terms of their track record and ability and
Is that
capacity.
the tiny homes?
They do tiny homes, they do the Sobering Center, they do the Dignity Move, they do the Sierra Bueno Hotel that was converted. They do the warming centers. They kind of moved into town 4 years ago and have really sort of expanded their footprint.
All right. So end of the
Right.
year, they're going to close up, and the city's going to make everything fine in the meantime. Not to worry.
You know, it's a pretty tight. Okay, we got what, 4 or 5 months? That's a lot. They haven't done any RFPs, requests for proposals from any operators, so that takes a while.
Jump in there, Josh. What were you going to say?
Well, I was just going to say, from one journalist to another, nice scoop. That was a good story. I don't know how you got it or whatever, but I read that one and went, all right. It's my turn next week. My turn next week.
So as a result, Josh had to find his own scoop, and he went off and he found that the front stairs of the museum had been painted in a very colorful way that the Landmarks Commission may or may not like. What's going on over
It
there?
technically was a scoop, Jerry.
And it was a scoop,
No.
and it was a great photo. And
I didn't read it anywhere else. No.
And the fact that actually exists, actually happened in Santa Barbara gives you hope.
Exactly. And actually, so I'll get there.
What's the story?
So the story is that the city has this, or the Santa Barbara Museum of Art is planning for a exhibition, Monet to Matisse, or Matisse to Monet, Impressionist era, and it's going to start. I think.
Matisse. You had it right the first time.
Okay, so it's going to start in October. It's kind of cool. They're going to wrap with an adhesive. The name of the exhibit on the steps, and they're trimming back the bushes, which I'm really glad because I almost fell from those bushes when I was shooting down on one of the protests. But that's beside the point. They're doing this really cool thing, and it's part of a larger public art display.
You won't hear anywhere else. Go ahead, Josh.
Are we not in sync today, Jerry?
Go for it. No,
Also, the city of Santa Barbara received some grant, so there's going to be some pavement art that's going to go along the 500 block and near the farmers market in that area as well. So the city's trying to do lots more public art in order to sort of make State Street more attractive, offer something different for people downtown. Now, the Historic Landmarks Commission reviewed the exhibit, and they're very excited about it. So I think it's going to be sort of
is
a
it
cool.
is the exhibit put together with paintings and objet that are local, or is this a traveling exhibit?
It's a traveling exhibit. I think we are one of two cities in the country this year who's going to get this exhibit. So, within the next year. So yeah, it is. I got to say, like a shout out to the city of Santa Barbara, and I'm sure everyone here already knows this, but when they do those historic resources reports and they study the history of a certain building, that's really what made me want to do this story was because to learn the history of the Museum of Art as the original post office building. And it was sort of this federal building. And then you got the bankruptcy court kind of up the street a little bit. That was sort of the original federal area. But then it outgrew itself and they built the new post office over there on Anacapa Street. And at the time, this is like 1940s, people wanted a place to display art. So they came together. The county bought the building and said, let's turn it into an arts collaborative. And from there, it morphed into the Museum of Art. And that's just a little bit of the history that's
Well,
continued.
that was really interesting stuff you had in there. It was. Nick, I think you covered the opening of the museum back then, didn't
Wait a
you?
minute. Yeah, yeah. Here's a little tidbit. So where the post office now is, the story is that Thomas Sork, then publisher of the News Press and Capo de Tutti of all Santa Barbara, uh, he wanted the post office there because he wanted to obliterate what had been a house of prostitution where his father was known to frequent. So he wanted to obliterate any trace of his father's nefarious past.
Because he was ashamed or because he was covering for his father's
I think
tracks?
he was covering for his father.
Okay. Hey, before we go, Ryan, I meant to ask you when we were talking about the immigration stuff. So city council finally figured out how they want to funnel the money, the $500,000 for to help immigrants who are having legal and other problems. And what did they decide on?
Yeah, so that 500,000, they're going to do 130,000 right away to Immigrant Legal Defense Center, which is, on the ground helping families and the children. Also, they do a kind of full caseload. They do therapy and legal assistance for people impacted. And then the rest is going to go to grants to other organizations through the Fund for SB, which is a Fund for SB, very trusted, and that's kind of why the city went with them. And it'll likely kind of probably go to 805 and DocuFund, other members of the Immigrant Coalition. There's a couple dozen members of that.
So the fund is going to administer the funds, as it
Yeah,
were.
so it'll be grant based, and they're going to try to speed that up as quickly as possible to get that money into the organization's hands. But right away, the Immigrant Legal Defense Center will get
And
130,000.
what
It
is the
was
fund? What does the fund take off the top for
The
doing?
fund takes 10% off the top, so it'll be 37,000, and then the rest 333 will be to straight to the organizations.
And because
Did
we
Christy
are,
Lozano show up and say that she was threatening to get six the feds on it?
Who
Now
did?
a couple weeks ago, we have a couple of commenters that come to
Who
city
showed up?
council. I think it was Christy Lozano, and
Yeah.
she said, I think she reported Santa Barbara County to Christy Nome and to DHS. I don't understand what reporting your own community to the federal government, especially what's going on right now, trying to put a focus on and a target on our back. I don't think anything will come of it, but just having her speak out and Just it's get then again goes to what we were saying of they're not following people, they're not interfering. Any of these organizations are really upstanding. 805 on DocuFund.
Hey, they indicted a guy in Washington for throwing a sandwich. So, I
Exactly.
mean,
And it's
I don't underestimate.
But they wouldn't
No,
prosecute. They wouldn't prosecute.
no, no, they took it to the grand jury twice.
and the
And
grand jury
two
said,
different grand
no,
juries said, get the
don't
hell
waste
out
our
of here.
time.
We're not. I mean, it's so funny because that's like this great, truism in legal school. If a grand jury will indict a ham sandwich, and then the grand jury actually has a
Won't.
ham sandwich, and they won't indict. They won't indict the guy. It's hilarious.
So
But
it's a weird,
you
weird
think
world every
Christy
day.
Lozano's applying for one of those ICE jobs? I bet she is. I don't know.
I don't know how many people from Santa Barbara will apply for those. It kind of, I don't know what type of people would
You know what?
apply to that. All right.
All you gotta do is look at the little recruitment poster, and I think there's
Yeah.
7 people on there. All of them are white. I
Yeah.
mean, it's like it's not even all that subtle what it is.
And I don't know, you have to be a special kind of person to sign up and be like,
Yes,
yeah,
must be a
I'm
veteran
all
of
for
January 6th. Yes,
exactly.
that's
Yeah.
yeah. All right. All right, fellas. Thanks so much. Thanks everybody for watching. Ryan P. Cruz, Nick Welsh, and Josh Molina. And we will see you next time. Have a good and safe Labor Day weekend, and we'll see you on the other side.
On the other side.
Thank you.